sharing that list, I said, darn it, I can't figure out how to get this fetched to list. So I just took screenshots of the list.
Well, that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I just could not get it to make me, just pull me out a list.
Oh,
She asked, we have, although
yeah,
that
I was
list
gonna
is,
say,
Beth made a list.
made a list.
She did, although this one,
But,
I
all
thought it
right,
was like 53 or 54.
no, no, it was
no,
60.
59, but
60.
then this one,
Yeah,
she's
like I
got
said,
60.
these numbers compared to these,
Okay, and so those are like sewer pumps? Is that-
yeah,
Okay,
sewer utilities.
Yes,
okay,
that's what she
And this one is
had.
utilities.
Because when I counted it up, there were like 59, and I went, yeah, and so then when I looked at it, I
But
realized
it
I
is
had the wrong
60
station.
numbers.
okay.
Oh, that's something,
That's kind of interesting.
it really is.
You own that many.
Yeah, well, see, we
I know
don't,
there's little stuff, some of them are little.
yeah, but at that time, they allowed them to build on them, 40-foot lots.
Mr. Wiswasser not going to come.
No, he's in his office.
That's what I thought. 'Cause I thought, I thought I saw
Just today.
Jason,
Bulldozed.
I heard from.
And that's like where the pump is, right on Slate Road. Okay, so that's
Karen,
the
what time
2
will the lights be lit?
I don't remember the number. Okay.
What time are you?
Yeah, I don't remember the numbers
The lights.
until they tell me what they are.
So they already are done.
They did them today.
No, I knew it was today, but I just didn't know what time. Was there a time?
No, there wasn't an event.
Okay,
There was just DPW put them off and
they plugged them in.
plugged them in.
I'm gonna keep this in here.
Not the same, not an event.
Thank you.
So we have to wait.
Well, he's got a jacket on, so he's good.
We just turned the heat up, so in like an half hour, we can go up 2 more degrees.
Do I have to pay for the sauna treatment?
What?
Do I have to pay for the sauna treatment?
Yeah, this is.
No, it is cold right now.
I bet.
Ah,
I know there's an agenda in here, Sandra. Oh, here, I didn't mark on it yet. All right, we call the meeting to order. It is 1 minute after 4. Need a roll call?
Ms. Howe?
Here.
Ms. Butler Challenger here. Mr. Emerigi?
Here.
Mr. Bensi? Here. Mr. Funes Bliss?
Here.
Mr. Rosecrans?
here.
Mr. Westwasser will be in shortly.
Wherever he may be. But now he'll be absent.
Yep.
Until, okay. All right, for those who, there he is, speak of the devil. Dick?
Mr. Westwasser?
Somebody has to work. Thank you for
Westwasser,
coming.
here?
He's official. All right, for those who have an agenda, we're on item 2, which is civil reflections. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we're on item 3, which is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the agenda as printed.
Is there a second?
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Emerigi?
Yes.
Mr. Bensi? Yes. Mr. Westwasser?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. That takes us to 4, which is disclosure of conflict of interest. Do we have any? Doesn't appear that we have any, so we're going to say none. That takes us to item 5, which is public statements. To the agenda items, is there any public statement?
Not anymore.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Hi, my name's Gary Schaefer, and I'm here to plead the case for, is it okay if I take this off? Or no? Okay. I'm here to plead the case for the walkway around the park, more or less. There's every township around us. I know we do have Bengal Park over across the road that backs up to the highway, and you could walk around there. And some people say that's all we need, but if you look around, there's many parks around lakes that you can walk around. I have several copies of trails that are in Michigan, and when you put these trails around lakes, people will come and they will spend money. I know because I've been to several of them. Just a few are marked here. You don't have to go very far to go to DeWitt, Alma, anywhere, Meridian Township. These are all tied together, and it takes a little bit of work to tie them together. I understand that, but first you have to get around the lake, and I would like to see that happen. I don't know if I understand that this has been going on where people that would like to have had this for 15 or more years. It's not like we have to purchase property. The property is the township's. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that I find it would be a great asset to Bath to have this. Other than when I first moved out here, I've only been here 5+ years. I've owned my property for 5+ years. I didn't even realize there was a downtown. I thought the Four Corners was a downtown. And then when I did go downtown, getting off track a little bit, I looked around and I see empty restaurants, empty everything. So what I would like to do is maybe have a vision to help improve this township. I know we don't have Meridian Township's money where we can build skywalks basically, but I go over there and I ride quite often, and I'm sure that other people would come to this township if there was something for them to see. So I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but there's it says right here, your guide to over 2,400 miles of Michigan's non-motorized biking, hiking, and water trails. Well, we've got it all sitting in our backyard. So I would just hope you would strongly consider this. I think it would be a great asset to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Is there anybody else? All right, we're going to move to 6, which is new business, items for introduction and discussion. Apparently, according to this, it's Ray Cocky. Ray, did you ask for a 15-minute?
I just asked to be put on the agenda. Anytime over 3 minutes is exceptional.
Shoot.
And as you all know, you're going to be having a test on this, so if you have any questions, now is the time. I'm Ray Kotke from Park Lake area, Park Lake Road, Bath Township resident, Bath High School graduate, all of the above. And I just wanted to formally get on the agenda so that I could answer any of your questions that you may have concerning this proposed project. You know, it's been tossed around, like Jason said. He said it's been tossed around for at least a decade. So I think it's April that's printing off a concept proposal that was initially put out in 2014 or 13. But I couldn't find the PDF, so I got a hard copy, and she's making copies for all of you, so you could just have that. But basically what it is an overview of what Spicer had done initially for this project. And a lot of the infrastructure is already there. Like we won't, beat a dead dog, because you already know all about this, hopefully. So if you have any questions at all that I might be able to answer in regards to your position.
One quick question
Marie.
in regards to this. The dotted line
Yes.
that you have is supposed to equal what? What does the dotted line mean?
That's supposed to equal 100.
No, I mean,
Oh.
what? Oh, good man. Good.
Well, there's all different colors of dotted lines, the legend
Okay,
right
it's
over
the
here.
blue. No, I understand that. It's down at the bottom. It would be this south end or whatever that
Okay.
end is. See
The
where
dotted
the-
line
yes.
here is the proposed trail. And
Oh, all right,
This
that's what I-
particular one, this was Spicer's initial, and that was the only
Yes.
graphic I had, so that's what I used.
Okay, no, that's.
This right
good.
here is the prohibitively expensive elevated walkway. And as the Shapers know about helical piles, they had to have those put in to have their house built right on the lake. Perfect. Yeah, this is out right here.
Oh, this is-
This will kind of give you an idea of what's going on.
We didn't show that.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And they're two-sided also. But that handout right there explains that this was put together in about 2013 initially on the Parks and Rec plan for a non-motorized trail. It was part of the Tri-County non-motorized trail plan. I attended the meetings with the other counties. They had a great vision for all of this, and a lot of the other counties have really progressed with their non-motorized trail plan. And unfortunately, we haven't. So that's what I still persevere to see if maybe we can get a trail system started and get the community to enjoy it. So, did I answer your question in regards to that? dotted
Yes,
line?
you did.
Did you have
That's-
any questions about the other dotted line?
Where did you want to start?
Right, the CIP, that's what's germane to this need, is basically from right here, this is the water control structure,
Right,
up to here. That's where the parking area is. With
because
the,
there's already a trail, correct?
There
From
is.
understanding.
this,
that you-
when they built the berm for the water control structure,
Okay,
they built it with the intention of putting a non-motorized trail literally on the top of it. And so in order to do that, you know, you have to backfill, you have to put the proper gravel and the grading and all of that, and that's all been done. It's with the intention, I literally, and I say I don't mean to take credit, but I literally sat down with the principal of Spicer at a table at the draft house and wrote this out, because he asked me for ideas. And so that's what we came up with, is this right here.
so where you want to start is at the,
Right on Webster Road at the parking area.
okay,
Which incidentally, I have a bazillion actual photos of when they did this. They put in over 4 feet of non-permeable fill right there for that parking area with the intent that it would support safely a school bus or multiple school buses. Because that's what I said, well, you know, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have educational trips out here, theoretically. And so that's what they used. They needed a fill area anyway. And so that's what they used it for. So, excuse me?
I said it was originally the staging area when
Oh.
they built the
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even hear where that came from. I heard
No,
noise.
that's- I've heard that before,
Yeah, and that's where they put their heavy equipment also, so.
right.
That attests to the integrity of that, because it's very, very mucky, swampy area out here. In fact, if you look at the 100-year floodplain from FEMA, it actually encompasses this whole area over here and all the way over to Chandler Road. So we'd have 2 hard lakes if we ever had a 500-year flood. This right here is a present berm that is on the I property. That was an easement. You see that J shape right there. What I propose is, instead of this prohibitively expensive elevated walkway, if we could get, you see that red line right there? That's a contour line that comes up above the water level. And that is unfortunately on Oak Island's property. So if we could get an easement to go onto their property with this trail, we could keep it on terra firma and not have to elevate it, which is where expense comes in on the non-motorized trail. Because you have to use, as somebody said, I think Gary said, the elevated walkway over there in Okemos. That short distance, I understand, was $2 million. But you didn't have to use telephone poles for it like they did. But. So anyway. What that is right there is an attempt at just trying to make a conventional path on the ground.
So where you're starting, you'd be working your way down, for lack of a better word,
Correct.
and you're looking to grant money, looking for, what are you looking for?
In your handouts that I just gave you, there are several opportunities for grant money.
Okay.
Most of them are around 25% matching at a minimum. And yes, there are multiple grants. The TAP grant unfortunately requires that we have 12-foot wide paved walkway, which unless you can land a plane, I don't think you need that. But that's what's required if you want their grant money. There are several other ones that aren't on there that were not available. I believe that came out in 2014, that particular handout. There are a couple of more that are available that aren't on there yet that I found out about. And this is, as you know, you may remember Karen and I talked about phases of this project, which is going to require multiple phases. And there can be multiple grant monies, applied for if and when this project goes through. And different ancillary, like this yellow line is for a proposed elevated observation area. Or that could be where an educational pavilion could be as well for outdoor teaching. The yellow line, excuse me, is on the old dike that was made back in the late 40s. And it only goes to the end right there. That was when this building was built. They had to dig an enormous hole underneath to backfill it. And it was clay underneath. And they actually took these dump trucks and dumped it right along there because it's impermeable. So that was when we were trying to, at any way possible, shore up the old water control structure. And that's what you do is you use non-permeable clay so that water doesn't go through it. But we ran out right there.
So basically what you're looking at, if I'm understanding, please jump in, because if I'm in error here, I need to know it. When you talk about it being in sections, you're talking about over the next number of years.
Decades. It's taken us since 2013 to get where I'm at today.
Okay, no, I understand.
I know how Don Quixote feels.
But once that's been approved, if it's approved.
If it's approved.
Then that section becomes part of Park Lake, which means the extension of it, you have to come back every year to go through
That
an
process. to get-
extension of what it is you're looking to do.
It's a possibility. I leave that to you, brainiacs, to come up. You could come up with a multi-year project that would allow throwing $5 in the hat every year to increase the trail.
So
beauty.
you're amenable to anything, as
Oh,
long
very
as
much
it gets
so.
started.
Right. To get, yes, Jason.
So, tell me a little bit about some of the fundraising work you guys have been doing
Okay.
so far.
The largest so far that we have secured as Friends of Park Lake, we have a $5,000 grant that was awarded to us by Lake Trust Credit Union for signage, or, all non-motorized trail systems, nature parks. You have, informational signage to tell about the flora, the fauna, what used to be. That's what that's for, ear tagged for. And we have several other thousands of dollars that we've garnered through the summer solstice meetings that we've squirreled away to, until this project becomes a reality.
And then, can you tell me a little bit more about some of the supporters of this project and maybe some skill sets they have at applying for grants, larger grants, perhaps the MDNR grant?
I don't, other than the TAP grant, I don't know of any larger grants than the DNR Trust Fund, which I believe has a cap of 300,000. I'm sure there are grants larger than that, but as of this.
No, not in terms of, what I'm trying to figure out is,
Okay.
If the township were to make an investment to kickstart this, would the Friends of Park Lake or would interested parties be in a position to actively seek grant support?
Very much so.
For their expansion?
In fact, one of the reasons we've kind of, for lack of a better reason, slacked off on asking for contributions or donations from corporations and the like are just because of the spinning of the wheels over the past 5 years. You know, for 10 years, we have been out there beating the bushes trying to get donations, and they say, well, that's all fine and good, but I haven't heard anything from the board saying that they're even going to start this project, so it's a non-issue.
Can
So-
I ask one more question before Judy? you
Can I
step
just
in?
add to his answer? Jason, I have talked with and worked with the person who is the staff person for the Green Space Committee at the county level, and he writes a lot of these and gets a lot of these DNR trust fund grants approved, and he will help us, provide us technical assistance, and write that grant with us. He's told me that.
Okay. Quick question, who funded the Spicer analysis?
The township did. And in fact, on that note, I think I've mentioned this to you, Karen, before. This would be in the historical database, but I'm almost positive that we paid Spicer $4,500 or $5,000 for the writing of the grants and the assistance to do this in the past, and we never went through with it. So I'm pretty sure that we paid them and didn't get anything for it yet, so that we still should have a credit with Spicer for some work. And also,
If it didn't work, we shouldn't have paid for it.
well, exactly, but I'm almost sure that this was, I think, even before Waticha was here. And I wanted to ask you, you know, if you can look at old documents or whatever, but there was another time when Denise McCrimmon was chair of Parks and Rec, that I believe we paid $3,000 or something for Spicer to survey. And they either didn't survey or they surveyed the entirely wrong area. Ryan, you may be able to remember something like
I
that.
think they surveyed what Superintendent would teach and told them to survey.
Well, I don't think he even knew.
I'm sorry?
I don't think he even knew exactly the precise coordinates.
He's the one that I have emails. He's the
Oh,
one that
okay.
guided them on where to survey.
Okay, but anyway, long story short, they didn't survey where it was determined that was needed to be surveyed. So that's another area, gray area, that may still,
Let me just check my understanding of this particular project. So, in the past, the township has invested resources into looking into creating this trail. A group of community members has been, did the hard work of developing a plan, a budget. They've sought external support to support the project. They're willing to continue seeking external support. We've had numerous community members come in, besides Mr. Schaefer. Connie from Parkway Creamery came in. Of course, we have our familiar faces of Ray and Judy. So we've got a capital improvement plan that has what, to me, it seems like we've already made an investment into it as a township. We have what appears to be fairly sustained community support, sustained over years, despite the frustrations of having no action or little acknowledgement of their efforts. And we have, we're currently sitting on a healthy fund balance that we're compelled to invest back into our community. I don't understand what the challenges are. And I have yet to hear any challenges other than the fear of, at one point, there was a $2.5 million price tag associated with it. And now we have a plan that has been brought before us that's $41,000. It seems to me that this is something that if we make an investment in, our community will continue their investment to seek additional funds through grants and other opportunities. I don't understand why we don't push this forward.
well, you're preaching to the choir. As I go through all of this in my head, you know, I've spent since 2013 for this moment right here to actually get an official audience with the board, and I was really, really, really nervous all day today, and it's just because we've never gotten to this point. And one of the reasons You made you made the distinction between the $41,000 capital improvement plan that we're speaking of today and the $2.7 million elevated walkway plan that was put the kibosh to it, almost immediately. I can't answer why it hasn't gotten any farther. There are several other things that you didn't mention that maybe you don't know about or you just neglected, but the township also purchased a lot right here to obtain egress, we'll say, out to Park Lake Road, which was in excess of $60,000, explicitly for the purpose of this trail. And that was through a DNR grant, incidentally, which we cannot use as matching funds. But that's, exemplifies at one time, the forward motion, if you will, for this project that came to a screeching halt. So,
Can I repeat that? So the township sought DNR grant funds to purchase property for the purpose of completing this trail, and we have not followed up on what presumably is a commitment.
That was 2014.
No, that grant's
And I have been in contact with the DNR trust fund, and they actually asked me what's going on.
I just want to clarify, so it sounds like the superintendent is saying that the grant has been completed.
Yes, that was a purpose grant. It was not the trust fund grant.
So was the purchase of the property, what was the intent? I mean, if it was a grant application, was it a competitive grant application?
I can't answer that, but from reading the deed, it was for the purposes of assisting with a non-motorized trail process.
I'm going to jump in here for a second. The superintendent, Karen, you had mentioned to me that she has the file, or at least you were going to look for it. That's what's missing, is that piece for that property as to the file, when it was purchased, how it was purchased, whether or not there's some
Well, the parking
disclaimer that goes with it.
the parking restriction.
Right, we don't know that, but the file, have you found that yet? Okay. Oh, you didn't tell me.
Okay.
Okay, because I asked for it. How, can I still have it?
Yeah?
Okay. I'm just asking because you never said that you found it. That
So
was something that was asked for. So in that file, then should answer your question. Jeez, I hope.
Presumably, we had
I hope that would
a
answer
justification for asking for funds to purchase
Well,
the land.
that was why I gave you all a copy of this. I couldn't find a PDF. All I could find was the hard copy. So you all have a copy of that was just handed out. What that was the concept plan proposal based on the 5-year Parks and Rec plan for a non-motorized trail around the back of the lake. You had to have those two things before the DNR would even consider a grant. And so in using this and the 5-year plan that encompassed 2013, the DNR granted that grant. Troy Feldman whose name is on that CIP plan proposal application acceptance and purchase of that property, of that parcel. And really, in all honesty, in a nutshell, that's pretty much where it stopped, where this project stopped. And that was, I believe, late 2013, might have been 2014, 2015.
I think it stopped when Troy left.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where it stopped, So in a nutshell, before we go prattling on any longer, pretty much I've asked for this time to get an audience with you to ask you to officially adopt or make a motion to recognize the non-motorized Park Lake Trail and Nature Preserve. And irrespective of how much you decide to fund it for, we could get started on it. And it's never going to be finished. I mean, it's just like a house. If you own a house, you know darn well it's never finished. You're always repainting the bathroom or, putting in a new deck or something. So that's what I'd like to see us do with this trail. It could be our Mott Park. And I have to say that I think this would be a lot nicer and offer a lot more to the community than Mott does.
Okay, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Any other questions?
Well, I have a question not for Ray, for
Oh,
the
okay.
board. I mean,
That's,
Can someone remind me what reasoning we have for not moving forward with this?
It wasn't me, I wasn't here.
I would like to say one last thing too.
I think it's a great idea, but
In the past, when we put our CIPs towards this project, the one I can think of is Dan Waticha when he was superintendent, Karen. At this meeting, such as this right here, he verbatim stated, no, I would not recommend funding this CIP project because it's not well organized and the concept isn't there. And that just doesn't fly with me because we've done an exhaustive phasing of this. And as you know, you can make as many micro phases or maximum phases if you want. If somebody plopped $10 million down, it could be one phase. But, that's not going to happen. So it's going to be a phased project. So that's what I'm asking you to just pretty much acknowledge this as an entity, and let's get started on it. And once you get started on it, I can assure you that the community, the volunteers, I'll bet you we could get 40 people to go out there and clear sticks on the trail and do just about everything, manually labor intensive that it would take, just because there's that much pent-up enthusiasm for this. Thanks.
thank you. Anybody else for public comments or introductions that we've got? So that sounds good. Right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we're on B, 4.6, which is items for action. That's the 2022 budget. And I would turn that over to Karen, which is what you've done in the past.
Thank you.
So is that, I think that's agreeable.
Yes.
Okay.
So I drafted before you, and you can take this discussion where you would like to. What I would like to do is just introduce the fact that I have put in front of you an updated budget since our last meeting on the 22nd. So to date, all changes, corrections, and requests that you have made have been entered into this document. And then in addition to that, I have prepared 6 resolutions that were in a packet.
Yeah.
You laugh.
I laugh because I'm looking at these going, okay, I understand some of them. Some of them
Yeah.
I don't understand because we already do it, but
Okay.
go ahead.
So these are the resolutions required to adopt the budget. And you can, this in no way prevents you from making additional changes today. If you vote to add the Park Lake Nature Trail, if you vote to change anything else, if you vote to put more money, whatever you decide to do today, changes can be made before Monday in the public hearing. So just know that these are drafts. Changes can be made to these, changes can be made to the budget. I'm in no way saying it's done and this is the final paperwork. So when you're done with today's work, we will go away and I will make final changes for the budget public hearing.
All right. What have these resolutions got to do with salaries?
We're required, because we do not have an annual meeting.
We don't?
No, we don't. So because we do
That
not have,
term is, it's the term you're looking at then, right? Yeah. No.
By statute, the general law township has to have a annual meeting, a charter council.
Right, which has never been brought up before. So you've been doing these meetings for years.
Doesn't have anything to do with it.
Okay.
Never been brought up.
Okay.
You just asked
This-
me a question, I specifically told you what
Right.
the statute said.
Yes, you did. So.
so
annual
because we do
meeting-
not have, you have to adopt each officer's salary independently
Because we
per
already
resolution.
Do that.
You have
It's
to.
in the budget.
Okay, but you
Okay.
have to have a resolution because we do not have an annual meeting. It's required because we do not have an
Okay.
annual meeting, you have to pass a resolution. So then you'll pass.
So every year you pass a resolution.
Correct.
Okay.
Every year we pass all 6 of these. So
Okay.
you take the general appropriations, file first, which is how you are planning to administer the budget
I've
and
never
how
seen
you
this.
appropriated it. It's the
Okay.
first document. It
That's-
says who is responsible, myself and the treasurer, Ms. Wasser, as the
Right.
financial officer, and how we adopt the budget, which is line items and cost centers.
Okay.
And then the second page shows you, I believe it's the second page, shows you the general
General
fund
fund.
appropriations.
Okay.
Yep. Shows you the millage rates and how much you're spending on a fund balance at this direct.
This is the view of what our budget is, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So in order to formally adopt your budget, you pass this document. You will authorize and sign.
So we do
actually
that now
vote.
as opposed to the
No,
6th? Okay.
no, you do it after the public hearing.
That's
You
what I-
hold the public
okay.
hearing, and then you can choose to adopt these after the public hearing on the 6th, or you can wait until the 15th.
Okay.
It's up to you.
That's, okay.
Okay?
And then you go in,
The second resolution is because the state requires an 80-20 match for healthcare funding. We exempt ourselves from that funding because we supply 100% of the funding for healthcare for our employees and our full-time employees. So this is an exemption from that requirement that we're required, if we exempt ourselves, we have to do it every year when we adopt the budget.
Just two options, one is a funding cap.
Yes.
And the other is an 80-20 match.
Yes, and I
Yes.
believe the hard cap is like $12,000. I was trying to find the current number for 2022, and I couldn't find it today on the website, but the last I knew it was like 12 grand. Yeah, and it's different for employee plus one and a family, so. But because we provide the entire cost, we exempt ourselves from this requirement and pay for healthcare for our employees.
which is under MERS.
I'm sorry?
Is it under, that's different.
MERS is the retirement.
Is it retirement?
Healthcare, I'm
Healthcare.
talking about health, medical
That's
insurance.
what, 'cause I'm just, look at the audit and start looking at what that was said.
Yeah, so that's just for medical insurance
Okay.
for employees. And then the 4 resolutions, one for the supervisor, one for the treasurer, one for the clerk, and one for the trustees.
And these have to be done by either the 6th or 15th.
They have to be, yes, adopted when you adopt your budget, yes.
Okay. Because this is the first I've seen it. Okay. Nope, I got it. So there's no reason to vote on this. Because there's no vote on this until the 6th or the 15th.
That's correct.
Okay.
But we can vote on it, right?
No, you have to have your public hearing first.
Yes.
So the
That's
public hearing has been legally noticed and scheduled for the 6th.
correct. Okay.
So on Monday night, we'll go into basically the public hearing, and then once you close that public hearing, you can decide to move forward and approve each one of these, or you can decide you want to change something and you want to come back the 15th. So with that being said, as I said, the version in front of you is current with all the changes that you've made and agreed to date. If there is anything that you would like to negotiate amongst yourselves tonight or change, or it's your pleasure. If you would like to fund something in capital outlay, if you would like to add money to roads, I'm not suggesting those things, I'm just saying, whatever your pleasure is tonight is really up to you. This budget is where you've requested it to be until now. If there's additional work to be done, that's for you all to decide. I provided, I believe at the last meeting, a list, Marie brought that list in and asked some questions about items that could be considered for funding.
This list. I did that. All right, you guys know who I am, so just leave it there. That's no big deal.
Trustee Doing list,
Could you just give a brief overview of what changed in the 1129 page?
in the 11,
They're all really good.
the whole document?
Oh, the whole
Yeah.
document?
I have to go get my old version. If you want me to do that, I can certainly go do that.
So there were some things that we didn't act on.
Right.
So I assume those things weren't changed.
I only changed the things that you all agreed and voted to when we went page by page.
And the ones that you moved.
Yes, I
Because Ryan
moved,
had the
I moved
suggestion to
25,000 to
move-
the senior center specifically because it has a building improvement line item. That was in building and grounds, and it was more appropriate than the senior center. We removed the $40,000 from the Wiswasser Park parking lot improvement. I believe that that needs more work, so we eliminated that 40,000 out of there completely. We made changes to committee pay for committee members for participating in meetings. I mean, I have to go page by page, but I don't think we did a lot of changes, honestly.
There was a question I did have though on the roads. It's still at 400,000 mark.
You agreed to
What
leave it
was-
at 400,000, excuse me.
Yeah.
That'd be a treat.
That would have been.
The regular maintenance each year is approximately $167,000. I have reached out to the Clinton County Road Commission, and I'm working with them on a master plan of road improvements. We certainly are gonna try to use that to move forward with talking probably to Baker Tilly about bonding, if that's something the board is interested in, once we receive that plan.
So that, those
But
dollars weren't added. Obviously, they weren't added.
No,
Okay.
you all agreed to leave it at $400,000 at this time, and have, I believe Treasurer Wiswasser and I do some work with the Clinton County Road Commission, and then an agency that would do like an actuarial on us bonding.
Okay. I didn't, but that's okay.
I thought that was a page we were coming back to.
We can certainly explore that. What I've reached out to do at this time is to ask for basically a master plan, and they have software at Clinton County Road Commission that can take our PACER ratings and basically spit out a project schedule that can be 5 years, 10 years, and give us an idea of what costs we would be looking at to bring all of our
Okay.
roads up either to a fair or good condition in order to have an actuarial done on the option of bonding.
So one of the changes that the police chief mentioned was he had put in both part-time salaries and full-time salaries to sort of hedge his bet depending on which way we were going to go.
Right.
At this point, it sounds like we're supporting full-time salaries. Have you backed out the part-time salaries then?
I have, even though you have indicated that support there, let me just go to that page, please.
What page are you looking at, Ryan?
22 is the.
I don't know what page it's on, I'm sorry.
These are numbers.
I'm not on a page.
Honestly, 22. Honestly,
That's what I thought.
he increased that by $8,000. He's at approximately 29,733 as of 11/22. So he added approximately $8,000 to that. That could be reduced with an amendment, or it could be reduced if you're intent on moving forward with adopting the additional officers, then that could be reduced.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be odd for us not to reduce it when he told us, I put it both in there, I only want you to pass one. It just seems an odd thing that we would do. Because ultimately, he's going to bring on someone like a 1.5 FTE, right?
He's looking at bringing in someone on January 1st to train for the retirement of an officer in 5 months. And
Yeah,
then-
so half a
and then
FTE.
another- Yes,
Yeah,
so you're accurate.
okay.
Yeah.
This, it says part-time, but it also says police officers overtime. So you've got to leave a bunch of money in there, because they,
Approximately 32 seems accurate with COVID this year. We're at 29.7 right now.
Yeah.
So 32 would be approximate to what we've encountered this year.
But you're looking at 40 for next year, right?
That's,
Is that,
yes,
okay.
like Brian said, or excuse me, Trustee Fuensla said, he added that money not knowing whether he would be required to cover more overtime, part-time overtime, or if he would get those officers he requested. So that certainly can be reduced. If you're willing to move forward with the first proposal, then we can reduce that by 8,000.
I mean, what I heard was that we were, it didn't sound like anybody was objecting to it.
I'm understanding what you're saying, Ryan, then you're looking at the part-time as well as the part-time overtime, correct?
No,
Part-time salaries.
Right,
That's full-time overtime.
so you're looking at 12,000 plus 40. Is that,
No,
okay,
it's, normally it's approximately 32, that's what he had this year in 2021. He
Right,
added
we're
an
looking at
additional
2022, right?
Correct, but he
Okay.
added $8,000 to 2022,
Right,
so we would only reduce that line by 8.
the part-time,
Part-time overtime, yes.
yeah. But you still leave the part-time salaries, or, hang on here. Yeah, part-time salaries at 12, even though we don't have a part-time.
At 32.
So we said, we'll bring out with this. Part-time right here.
No,
Right, 40, that's what, but if that's in addition to the 12.
32 plus 8 is 40.
Okay. So she's,
And
if you take the 8
and
out.
what he's saying is they're gonna take the part-time salaries out, they're gonna
Correct.
lower.
That 12,000,
That's correct.
okay, that's what I was trying to
21
figure out.
activity was
So
4180 and they'd added $8,000 to that as well. You got 8,000 both sides.
Oh, part-time. The police overtime, are you referring to the part, I didn't realize that there was a part-time and an overtime.
Yes, there's
They
2.
both got $8,000 added to, I don't know which one.
We
Yeah,
have
the
police-
overtime
we
is
have
what he
police
said.
Reserve officers that we employ throughout the year, so that's the part-time part of
Right.
it. The overtime, honestly, they've used, you can see they haven't used a lot of the part-time, but that's generally something that, he accounts for every year at that level, just because he doesn't know when. I mean, we have a dive team member, we have a chaplain, and we have another member.
Yeah,
so-
that's not what I'm talking
Okay.
about. What he
I
told
thought
us
the
was
40.
it's the 40, yeah.
Okay, so I would, if you're,
That's-
yeah, so if you're amenable, I can reduce that by 8,000.
Which one are?
Which one?
Which one are you reducing, Karen?
Yeah.
Are you reducing the?
708,
The
708, which would be the
708,
part-time.
yeah.
part-time, police overtime.
Yep. It is confusing when it's written.
Sorry, I didn't realize there was a
Yes.
part-time up above.
Frankly, police officer, the police department, I mean, if they gotta have overtime to do something, that means that there's a reason for it. And I guess probably if his budget doesn't have enough money in there, it's his responsibility as the chief to come to the board and say, hey, I have a problem here.
Right.
Because of all these issues we've had overtime, we've incurred overtime, so we need to amend our budget. And my feeling about budgeting for the overtime with the PD or anybody really, it's, who knows what's gonna happen?
You never know.
You don't know. So, I don't get too excited about it, because, I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna say, well, we're not gonna go out and police these problems we have because we don't have money in our budget?
No, the overtime is usually when you go to court or.
Yeah.
No, I think there's some confusion. Let me clear this up. The chief told us, he told us that he budgeted for extra staffing in 2 line items, knowing that we would pick one or the other.
Yep.
If we had another full-time staff, we wouldn't need the overtime. If we wouldn't allow him to have the full-time staff, he's gonna need more overtime.
And the add to your confusion is, I understand what the chief said and what you just said, but I'm just giving you my opinion. I personally, I'm not gonna quiver with anybody over it, but my personal opinion is let them amend their budget as they need it for overtime. That's my opinion. I think that they use that as a tool against us, to get what they want, to get a another full-time officer. That's my thought, but maybe not, I don't know. It's just my way of thinking about how they spend their money.
I mean, I think it was a smart way to budget, is what he was telling us. Because if we didn't go with one, he'd have to do the other. So rather than wheeling and dealing, he put them both in.
Correct.
I would ask that if, I'm hearing different opinions, so I'm gonna ask that if we reduce that by $8,000, that I would ask you for probably a voice vote, just to clear up any misunderstandings.
And you're talking about the 8,000 out of the part-time?
Out of
Or
205, 301, 708, part-time / police overtime.
All right, the part-time is 703, got that. And your part-time overtime for the police officer is 708, got that.
Okay.
What was the third one you were?
No,
I didn't think so.
I
I
am
thought it was-
proposing to reduce 708 by $8,000.
But we don't have part-time. Well, you said we have
Right.
reserves. The reserve is different than a part-time.
I was just doing voice votes.
Okay.
There's still, if Maria, if you look next to the line to the left, they have $30,000 occurring in overtime right now as it is.
Correct.
So they need some level of overtime. So I'm proposing to eliminate what the chief added, which is $8,000 to that line.
Nope, got it.
Okay.
No, I understood that.
Okay. All those in favor of eliminating that $8,000 from 205, 301, 708, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Those opposed?
No.
I'm gonna say no,
Okay.
but I completely understand it. Right. So what happened to the ayes?
Yes, the ayes.
Okay.
Are you intent on doing anything additional with roads?
Can I ask one more question on that?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. If we're not gonna have any part-time police department officers, why are we leaving the $12,000 in there then?
We have 3 reserve
They're
officers.
reserves, they're not part-time.
Okay, you're talking about Miller and the ones that go,
Yes.
work at the office?
Yes.
All right, all right,
Or they come on duty if there's an incident that we need their assistance.
right. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So we have 2, one's primarily for those reserves and the other one's for overtime.
Yeah.
What is the likelihood in your sort of estimation that if we replace as many vehicles as we're replacing in this budget, that they will all sort of come up at the same time and need to be replaced again?
I don't, if it was several police cars, I would say the likelihood would be enormous. Because they're different departments, one is a vehicle used by staff, which is, maybe used once a day to go out and measure or to be taken to training. The use varies, and it's not a hard use of that vehicle. A DPW vehicle, we have some in our fleet that we've had quite a long time. I mean, we try to fix things, but there's, a shelf life to some of those. So
Yeah.
I don't have great concerns about the ones that we're asking for at this time. They're not all similar, they're not all similar in use, and they're not all used by the same department.
Okay, thank you.
We weren't talking about the vehicle replacement in PD.
I was.
So-
If you were looking at 3 police cars, I would be concerned.
Yeah, because we used to do
Yes.
like all of them at the same time, and
Yes.
that didn't make any
This is
sense.
the last one of that fleet, of that year and that
Okay.
fleet, so.
So now we're doing just one.
1 this year in '22. We probably see a request for 2 possibly in '23. I think we try to do them 2 at a time. 2. Thank you, Ms. Frenzy. Other questions, concerns, changes? Discussion?
This $51,000 for the PD, 2 at a time, that you divide that by 2 cars, and it's down to 2 years or 1 year?
The 51,
Yeah.
it's the K-9 vehicle.
That's 1 year,
It's
then 1
one,
vehicle.
it's one vehicle, and it has to be fitted again with, K-9
Right.
equipment.
He held up 2 fingers, that's why I asked that, I thought I was missing something.
We normally buy 2 cars at a time.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
We may be lucky to get this one replaced this year, so.
Right.
Yeah, the K-9 car this year.
There's a shortage right now of those.
If that doesn't happen, then does that go into the fund balance?
Most likely what he'll ask to do
No, I mean
is,
for the police department.
most likely he'll come back and he'll ask to acquire a 2023. He'll ask for permission to seek purchasing a 2023 vehicle early
Okay.
instead of a 2022.
But what you're asking is if in an event in 2022, if the car doesn't
Doesn't
get,
work,
that money
you
doesn't
can't
get
get it.
spent for one reason or another, will that money stay in the fund balance? The answer to your question is if you appropriate this budget, then you appropriate that money to the 205 fund, and yes, it'll be in the 205 fund balance. It won't go back to the general fund balance.
Go to the general fund.
No, it will not.
It will not.
It will not. It will go in the public safety fund.
You have a public safety.
That's why you have a public safety fund now, because of the new chart of accounts, that's what they want. 23, everything will change in that way.
But I have seen Chief in the past, when he has the opportunity to buy early in another year, he'll come back and specifically ask this board for that permission to move that money forward. If he has to cross a budget year, or he will ask to take that money and not buy a 22, but specifically buy a vehicle, or pre-order a vehicle for 23.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
If in fact that's not used.
Yep.
Because who
Yep.
knows what's gonna happen with chips. Okay.
Would you like to revisit roads?
Would like to, but it won't do any good.
So at this time, we would have enough at this time, the way that the budget is crafted, to take care of the general maintenance that we're required for each year, and then also take care of, I believe, bond rentals.
The roads. But the road committee was asking for
We still
more.
got 105,000 left over,
Yes.
and so we could always put it into something else.
They'll tell us.
Being we're not doing downtown Bath.
When they do their evaluation, what we need to
Yeah.
invest in.
Hmm. Let's see.
I guess one question I have is, would it make sense to hire an outside consultant who is disinterested in the work that is done on roads in Bath to provide an overview or consulting services for development of a road plan?
So what we'll do is we'll take the PACER ratings of our roads, we'll take the data that the Clinton County Road Commission has, and we'll probably move to someone that's studying, like Baker Tilly's currently gonna study our sewer system. We'll take it most likely to a consultant like them to analyze that data and decide whether or not it's in our best interest to bond for the roads, or what other options do we have for financing those improvements over a period of time.
And
So we will do that.
should we add funds to a particular line item of contractual services within Public Works to fund that consultant company?
We could do that. I'm gonna keep losing my papers. I do believe too that there would be, most likely I would come back to you with a proposal from a Baker Tilly or a like company, and ask you specifically for that amount, whether that be 3,000 or 5,000, whatever that amount is for them to study that. I would be comfortable coming back to you and saying, this is the proposal, we'll take it to Baker Tilly, are you comfortable with this? And are you ready and willing to put that money into contractual and professional? I feel like that should be a specific ask.
And that money would come from the general fund.
Or it could be transferred from roads, it could be, I mean, there's,
Well, no,
If there's
that's
money
what
there.
I'm saying, when in fact you ask for a consultant, normally that comes out of,
if there's
the general fund.
$105,000 sitting in roads that's not being used, it's possible we could transfer it from there to contractual and professional. It's already allocated for roads, it would just be
Right.
put into another specific line item.
But aren't there a whole list of roads that need to be done? So
I was out Peacock Road this weekend, and let me tell you,
that would be a mess,
we had to wash Joe's car.
like mine all the time.
Yeah,
I'm on dirt road.
Steve?
Well, keep it, but I don't care which way you wanna go, where you wanna spend your money on the roads. So the one thing I do have a problem with, and I've said this throughout this whole process, is putting money in funds for somebody to do a study. Baker Tilly is gonna do an actuarial. They're gonna come in here and they're gonna look at every piece of underwear you have. And they're gonna know everything about this township when they get done. And they're gonna, if you put down there, you're gonna spend $5,000, I can guarantee you it's gonna cost you at least $5,000.
Yep.
And that's not the way to do business.
I'd rather sit with
Anybody that does any business, period, and I do a lot of business besides this place, you don't take and tell somebody how much
No.
money you got to spend before you start.
I would rather sit and define the project with them.
That's what we do also.
I'm sorry, I can exaggerate.
No,
This government is no different than running your business. It's the same thing. You gotta take and keep yourself close to your chest.
I agree. I think we should sit down and define a project
That's
with
the
them.
purpose of having an actuarial done. They already know when they call them up on the phone that we have money to work with, or we wouldn't be calling them. But to put money down, I'm sorry, I have no use for that.
No,
I've
I
seen
think it should.
attorneys do it, the auditors, I deal with them every day, and it's kind of hard not to take and play ball with them guys, because they can make things they can make you or break you. And the attorneys do it, all these people, the contracts from professional services people do this, and that's the first thing they do. And I learned that years ago in this business, and Tom King taught me that. First thing the auditors do when they come in is they read the minutes to see how much money they got appropriate, so they know how much money they're gonna charge the next time they come in, how many years of
Isn't
contract
that
they're
what we
gonna
do
do.
with the budget though? We're telling how much we have.
We have to by law, but we don't have to take, and we don't have to
So
operate.
that same theory.
We
and
don't
I
have to
agree
spend
with
the
what you
public's
say.
money that way. We have the responsibilities of the public to be good businessmen and women. End of story, in my opinion. That's not being a good business person. You're here today because, in the position you have, is because of all the sacrifices and all the things you've done and the investments you made when the investments were good and things, and clean things up, and you need to continue on with that. And it's one thing to do these studies and whatnot, and I realize, Jason, I'm not picking on you, I realize that there's good intention there, but there's a time when you have to stop being thinking, and you have to be a business person.
Well, let me help you out a little bit, because there are multiple disciplines in multiple fields, and they operate differently. And so, if I were to approach it, not as a businessman, but as someone who works in higher education, I do a market analysis of what do these things typically cost, and then while you're doing a budget for the next year, budget that amount, and then issue an RFP, a competitive RFP, so that you can get the best of both worlds. So that's just one other model. So there are many models for doing this.
And that's kind of what we're gonna do with this software, is the road commission has, in a way of being able to tell you what it's gonna cost you. Your road committee just went out and they've evaluated and they've came up with all the projects that they see as potential problems that ought to be done. The road commission is who actually owns the roads, so you have to play ball with them somewhat. And they're gonna provide you with software, tell me how many years of depreciation. I call it depreciation because once again, I'm a little bit more business oriented. But so how many years these roads are gonna depreciate over, what's gonna be the state of them over
5, 10, 15.
5, 10, 15 years. I'm told it's 15 years is max. And that's what they're gonna do. And then, at that point in time, you'll have that information, you get with your finance people, you figure out, you say, this is our timeline, what do you think that we're looking at here? And then, after you get all done, you do an RFP after you're all done with that, and you request it out, just like you do on a sewer project or anything else. And people get to bid on this, in a way, but it's on the financial end of it, as far as what they're gonna give you for a rate, and how it's gonna work. But I get what you're saying, but I just think that you've already got started here. You just gotta finish out and figure out how much money you want. I mean, that's what it is. But you can't, I shouldn't have said it. I'm gonna shut up. Why you not?
No, you're not.
Let me see if I understand you here. Are you telling me if I go out and bid something at $150,000 and tell the contractor I got $150,000 budget, that it's gonna come in at $149,999.10?
No, Joe, I'm gonna be mean to you because I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you some of your own medicine. I'm gonna say, them are soft numbers, Joe.
But it's true, that's exactly what he's saying.
Yeah,
That's
but
exactly,
that's exactly, you know.
And,
that's,
you know, I told her one day, I told her this, there's no friends in this business. There ain't a friend one in this business, we're all colleagues. And we act like colleagues here. I commend us for all our differences of opinion, we act like colleagues, and that's the way it should be. But Jesus, you just can't take the public's money and put it out there and say, dangle in front of somebody and say, hey, this is what, now this is just my opinion. You guys can do whatever you want, but I mean, you can't do business that way. I can't do business that way, and I deal with friendly people in my business, my other business I have. But I don't do business that way. It just, I don't go and say, hey, I got $100,000 to spend on fertilizer, you know, what can I buy this year? Well, we can just about fit that in, that's what
We
they
can cover
do.
that.
Yeah, they'll say that much.
no, that's dishonest, I would disagree with that. That's not been my experience, but that's been yours. You have X amount of dollars that you deal with, and that's what you tell them. You either come above it, below it, or on it. And you
ask them for a bid.
negotiate,
You ask
you
them for a bid,
negotiate.
you know, end of the story. That's the way it works.
We're kind of waffling. Does any of the
Yes.
board members have anything else that they want to contribute to this at this time?
I agree with Steve. The 5 years I've been here this time, we've never told them how much we had to pay them. We would always, what is your percentage going to be of this job?
My intention is to come back to you all and
Yeah.
have that discussion.
And then the road committee has to decide if they want to spend their money, is that how that's gonna work? You know, I'm asking.
At this time, there's money to do the regular maintenance, and then there's enough money to do one complete project. So what's left over, may be able to be used,
No.
or it's possible that it'll sit there unused, in return.
But it'll be up to the committee as to what they decide.
Well, it'll come back to
Well,
the board.
It's an advisory committee,
It's
though.
an
We just advise to
Exactly.
them,
Well,
so.
the board has to advise, the committee has to advise what it wants.
But the committee doesn't make decisions about where
No,
money
they-
is spent, is
they
what I'm
asked- They
saying.
asked you for more, and that's when we had the discussion about if you're gonna get into spending $750,000 or more, you know, upwards of that we really should be looking at a different method because of the cost.
No.
So,
Okay.
I think you took their recommendation and you said, no, thank you.
Okay, that's my question.
Yep.
Because they'll make a determination in their committee as to what it is that they're going to advise.
Mhm.
Don't get too technical with it. And then the board then makes that decision as to whether or not their advice has been taken
Mhm.
Yep.
for a yes
And right
or
now,
a
with the
no.
rate that they're
That's-
funded, you've said you can do regular maintenance
Sure.
in one project.
Okay, that's-
I think it's time to move on.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know where you want to go, really, what discussions
Oh,
you want to
is
have.
that what you're waiting, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking because I'm looking at your faces just because I don't,
My thought for it was we were gonna do capital improvement plans.
okay,
So if we're doing budget, that's okay. If that needs to be done, it needs to be done. I suppose the CIPs can be done at the open meeting before we accept or reject.
What is it you want to do with the CIP?
Well, this whole list that we were given for CIPs.
you're only.
That's not the
talking about
CIP.
No, these are projects.
Right, the CIP has two projects.
But I was informed that regardless of what the markings are, or whatever their project timelines, et cetera, they can do this, but that doesn't mean anything to us. That's something that,
I don't know what that
You-
means,
you
but
can
we have
choose
two
to-
projects that are in the CIP. The others are non-CIP
Yeah,
projects.
You can choose to fund a CIP project, or you can choose to fund a CIP project and an additional project. I put those in front of you in order for you all to have, to
Right.
generate discussion.
Okay,
So if there are two projects in the CIP that you could have discussion on, which is the trail
the trail and
Cousins Park.
Right.
So
Those
you're
are-
free to do that,
Those
or
are
you're
the two
free
that
to,
that you've picked or they've picked.
those are the only two
Okay,
in there for you
And
to
then-
discuss and have conversations about.
that's what I, so this list that we were given doesn't mean anything.
It's a list
Yeah.
of projects that we asked for, but it's
Okay.
not the CIP. They're two
No,
separate,
they're
distinct
two
things.
separate, distinct things. I get that, other than the fact that at one time these were CIP projects.
I mean, you're gonna have additional conversations about
Yeah.
ARPA money and different things, so there's,
Yeah,
you know,
I guess that's what I was
different
trying
pots
to
of money
figure
that
out.
those can be funded through, so.
I'm a little bit lost here. What is the list that you're?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, my don't want to. It's called potential projects for funding consideration. Two-sided.
I noted too that broadband, of course, is in there, but we don't have cost estimates at this time, so that is on the list too for consideration.
The roads, we have no consideration for the roads because we picked the 400,000. Okay. So these projects are not, even the expansion for the senior center, the Wiswasser Park, purchase of acreage, all of that fire department, Drum Hill Road, all of this is not the CIP that you want to look at, right? Is that-
Hold
am I
on.
understanding?
It's not the CIP, regardless of what I don't or do want to look at. It's not the CIP. They're a list of projects that we asked Karen to provide to us.
That at one time were CIP?
No, that's not accurate.
Some of them,
Some of them, but not all of them.
Well, then,
some of them are endeavors that previous boards took up.
right,
So they've come from a varying, range of places.
these are all just hanging there.
Correct.
All of these should go through a capital improvement plan review and process.
And some of them have.
And some of them have, yes.
So we aren't looking at that for the 22 budget, we're looking at these two projects for the 22 budget, is that correct?
Marie, if you want to look at something from the list, tell us you want to look at it, and we can look at it. If we want to look at the two, we can look at the two. Karen is not dictating what we do or do not do. She's asking us what we want to do.
I understand that. What I'm trying to do is figure out what it is that we're doing.
What do you want to do?
I know what I want to do.
I don't think you want to ask that question, but that's okay.
Grow up. If you want to do something, let's do it. Karen is waiting for you to come up and say, I would like to do this.
I'm waiting for all of you to have a discussion about if there's something you would like to fund.
Jason, what would you like?
I would like to fund the Park Lake Nature Trail for
Yes.
$41,820. And I'd like to add that amount of
What would you
money
do with that?
to one of the budget lines. I don't know if it's under Public Works or Park and Rec, but there's land improvements and other ones.
I think we decided last time it could go under parks.
I would also like to see us do something with James Cousins Park using DDA funds. And I'd like to see us support the Bath Museum Committee, the School Museum Committee, providing them with leadership and support and resources to accomplish that. And I'd like to see that done in a very concrete, committed way. And I don't want to throw money for an undetermined estimate.
No.
But I want to make sure that we do make a real commitment.
All right, I have a quick question. One is a statement. The 41,820, according to Judy and I had this discussion, that is a good number. It's not 2019. That's a good number. So,
That's a soft number.
well,
That's a soft number,
it's
he said.
soft, maybe soft, but it's soft from recent years, not 2019.
Just round it up to 50, that's
fine.
We'll take that, right? All right, and the second thing, when he's talking about the Cousin Park issue, does that have to go through the school? Because we don't own that. We only lease it.
That should be a partnership
Okay.
between the school museum committee, the township, and probably many other
Many
entities
others,
in the
okay.
township.
That's,
But the school museum committee has taken it upon themselves to do some legwork, to
Yes, they
identify
have.
some plans.
yeah,
I don't know if they have a budget or not, but we
They
can
do.
certainly support them in hiring some consultants to identify, to develop some plans.
all right, are you looking, what you're suggesting then is something more grandiose than just the plans? You're looking at like the bathrooms and the sidewalks and, is that what you're looking at, Jason? I
So-
don't know.
I'll step back. So we're what, 6 years out from the 100th anniversary of the
That's
Bastrop
right.
bombing. When we go to the park, we have left it fairly in its original state, right? And there's deep reasons why we've done that. But I think that, the vast majority of people would like to see a memorial park that they're proud of, that also fits the wishes of the family members whose families who had family members or loved ones who have passed. I feel that the Bath School Museum is well positioned to identify a sensitive approach. This is going to be an asset to our whole community, which is why I think we should fund it. I think that this should be a part of a much larger plan that we spend the next 6 years actively working towards to create some pride in place in our community.
Project, okay.
And so we were very specific about why we dissolved the DDA through lack of action. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and perpetuate the lack of action when we have something that is so important that we can accomplish.
Does the DDA money have anything to do, and this, I'm throwing this question out, throw your answer out there if you want, does it have anything to do with the Webster Road project?
It can. At this
Okay.
point, the DDA funds have not been allocated to any specific project other
Correct.
than for projects within the DDA district.
Okay.
And so we've got several plans that we're working on right now. We have the 2023 Webster Corridor project. We have the hopefully 2023 Safe Routes to School project. I think we can do some legwork for the Memorial Park. And I think we can connect all these things with a safe and inviting non-motorized pathway. And that's something that we owe it to our community to do. It's going to honor those individuals and families who have had losses. And it's going to, I feel it's going to be it's going to support sort of morale and again, I keep saying it, pride in our community.
So you're looking at someone to come in and design?
I'm looking for us to partner with the schools,
Okay.
the Bath School Museum Committee, and local businesses, community members, the Lions Club, to develop a project that we all buy into and we're all proud of. And I feel that the School Museum Committee has the leadership and the knowledge and the history to drive that bus with our support and input, right?
Oh, no, I couldn't agree with you more. The only question I have with it is, you're talking dollars over the next number of years. So is there a figure, or is that something that There's no way to get a figure.
Well, if I say $100,000, Steve's gonna jump on me.
You can't do that.
It's actually 174 there.
That's what because that's what I kind of,
You have enough, you have enough money to do that, and by your board action you took with what you did with your DDA board, by
Which was
dissolving the
180.
board, you didn't dissolve the DDA district,
Correct.
you dissolved the board. You have enough money there that you could
For
take.
the revenue resource.
For a revenue resource.
Okay.
Plus, if you remember right, if you look at the resolution, I asked specifically, which I think is the DDA fund, not the board and not the district, but the fund itself should be a CIP item every year going forward. And you should take $20,000 out of fund balance or $25,000 or whatever it was that we can agree on and put towards that fund every year and add to that fund. So you're not only spending it, but you're actually replacing it.
that's
because
what
it's
I
in-
wanted to do.
Because it's restricted. Well,
You
that's what the resolution
you
says
said-
if you read the resolution.
I did, and you said we couldn't do that.
That's not true.
Okay.
You wanted a guarantee.
Yes, I did.
And I said, no, you're not gonna give a guarantee. You don't know what you can or not. But as you are right now, you know you can. And $20,000 a year into that fund is not a lot of money. If you're gonna partner up with Jason's
Jason.
people
Which is.
and do all these things. But that's exactly what we talked about when we started this thing. The only thing different is you asked for a guarantee and somebody else in the audience asked for a guarantee, and I said, no. you
We're
can't.
on Zoom at the
I said,
time.
you
Yes, we were.
can't, you can't guarantee that. That's the public's money. How can you guarantee the public's money away in something that you had no idea on?
Because you were guaranteeing it through their taxes.
That's right.
That's,
Jason, on this first phase, do you think 20,000 is enough out of the DDA funds to start?
I think it's, I think it's I would say yes, it's better than zero.
it's better than zero.
So, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that if we make the investment to develop a plan, that it will be more than easy to solicit donations and grant funds to support the remainder of that plan.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to make two decisions. Give me two votes, in a sense. So under Parks and Recreation, page 19, are you saying your number is $50,000? Are you saying your number is $50,000? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask you is if you are, I'm sorry?
No, I said that's a good
Okay,
number.
so the
That's
first thing I'm
why.
gonna ask you is if you're in support of adding $50,000 specifically for the purposes of the Park Lake Trail to the land improvements line item, which is 101-751-974. Trustee Funes-Bliss?
So there's $50,000 in fund balance in the capital projects fund. Could we use that money for this capital project?
One more thing I ask you, but not
Yeah. It's actually 49,000 something.
710,
And it's
yes.
actually left over from back when, I wasn't here when they did this, but you was maybe on the board at the time, when they built your first sidewalk down here and put your wall
Oh, okay.
and your stuff for the, in front of the
What's your
post
road?
office.
Yeah, the retaining
That money
wall.
got appropriated for that, I went back through the minutes when I got here, and I checked that out, and that's where they come from, and it never got spent. They got done, got done the first time, then it got redone again.
Mm-hmm.
And that money never got spent there because it wasn't this road, it's spending money out of, or someplace else to take care of the road down there. But that's what that money is left over. from.
So would that be appropriate for the nature trail? The-
Yes.
The capital
It-
projects,
it's-
401?
It could be used for anything, for
Okay.
capital projects. But my question, my only thing is, if you're gonna do this, and this was, listen very carefully out here, audience. If you're gonna do this, you need to make sure that you do this once again. You need to make a one-time CIP item of capital projects to the Park Lake Trail, I think is what we call this thing, is that right? Okay. Park Lake Trail thing, but it's a one-time only funding. It's not like you're gonna continue to come back at this thing every year to put $50,000 in there. Not that you wouldn't if you could, but you don't know, once again, you're guaranteeing something here you can't guarantee because you don't know if you can do that or not.
So this phase at $50,000
Yes.
on page 35, instead of the Parks and Rec.
And I'll just say, I will have the expectation that if we fund this, that those entities that are working in support of this will actively seek grant funds to
But
continue.
it needs to be in partnership with the township.
Of course, of
Yes.
course.
There's things we can't do.
It's right there in notes.
Could we make the number just the amount that's in the fund balance, so we don't have to transfer over like $30?
Where, do you have the number?
49710. This isn't,
That's
I,
fund balance.
in my notes, sorry.
They're on nine.
I got this from the audit.
So I'm changing my ask. Page 35, which is capital projects. Are you in support of adding, or excuse me, adding, it's there, 49,700, and you said 1 or 10?
10.
$10 for the Park Lake Trail.
Wait a minute, I thought you said 50.
Well, there's 49,700.
There's not that much in the fund.
In there.
I'll donate the rest.
You don't have to. It's there in fund balance. So I'm going to ask you, if you are in
Next
support of
question.
it, please, I'm sorry, Al.
Now, how much of this walk is that,
It's just the phase one.
just the phase one?
That's,
It'll go from roughly the parking area down to the dam.
correct. That's-
But they're gonna actively, Jason told us, they're gonna actively, what do you say, Jason?
Seek external support for the expansion.
I would want to
In
follow-
cooperation with the township. Thank
I
you.
would be on record as saying that if this is funded tonight, then tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow. Wait till Monday.
Okay. We'll start on formulating the DNR trust fund for the purposes of, whatever amount we have to put in for the contributions.
So that in itself has a process too, so just don't run ahead without me.
No. Just
I know there's a lot of, I feel like I know that people know they feel like there's a lot of red tape, but like we're required,
Oh,
and those things are required to come to the board for support, so just take those steps with me and I'm good. So again, $49,710 on page 35, capital projects for the Park Lake Trail Phase 1. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
It's only been a few years.
Now I'm gonna ask you, Treasurer Wisswasser, because it's in using DDA funds where the James Cousins Park improvements need to be located.
Where the funds need to be
Where,
located?
where would they be transferred? Would they also be transferred to capital outlay, or should they be transferred to Parks and Recreation?
We can do it either way. You can do a transfer out of the DDA fund to the capital, or general fund capital outlay, or you can actually do it in DDA and do it in that fund and fund it completely. in
Would that
fund.
be, would
The
that
bank-
make more
The bank
sense?
account's not going away, and it's not gonna go away for
Okay.
transparency reasons. And so the fund is still there. I've had this conversation with both the auditors and the accountants. And really, in my opinion, it makes, they probably, the people who worked on the DDA probably don't feel that this way, but what it is being transparency. They get to see their money get spent on things that they worked on.
Yes.
And not things that, not saying that the townships are not using their money that's been restricted, I might add, to just the DDA district. But I also think that you ought to, for every dollar, I'm sorry, I think for every dollar you take out of there, I think you ought to, I think the township board with the fund balance that they have, I think they ought to consider putting, if you're gonna take $20,000 out of the DDA funds, then there's nothing saying that the township couldn't take $20,000 at the end of the year if they have a fund balance and put back into the DDA to replace that fund.
What's the
So
DDA?
it continues on, the legacy continues on being able to have monies available for the downtown district. And that's what the resolution said. if you look at what it said.
So the tax funds that are collected from that district, they'll go into our regular tax account
They're going
from now
back in-
on?
They're into your regular tax fund. The tax bill
Okay.
probably got one to mail people. Maybe somebody might have got a tax bill today, but I don't know, they got mailed 2 days ago. But yesterday, excuse me. But the tax bills now come, they don't go to the DDA any longer. They come to the township. The police and fire gets all 100% of their money from the DDA district, where before they got zero. The general fund contribution for the taxes collection, the property fund taxes, we get 100% of that. Now, the DDA doesn't get any of that. But the other tax unit that's involved in this LCC, and on the other point, they're funded as well. They get their money, which is appropriate.
Yeah.
For people who want to support their education, I guess.
So at the end of 2020, there was $77,583 of taxes receivable for the DDA. Is that still going to be placed in, or has that already
money's
happened?
Already been placed in, and that's part of your $274,086.
843.
Whatever fund balance is in the bank account right now. However, there's a determined amount that's gonna happen here in December. Mr. Stevens and I, from our accountants, have agreed on this. I didn't wanna do it till December. We have to refund Lansing Community College upwards of somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 of that 274. It goes back to them because that's their money.
Oh, wow.
So we'll make a disbursement to them, and then we'll be down to 174,000 some change that's left in there. And if you're gonna use $20,000 this year, then the township will replace that $20,000, in my opinion.
Okay, so
But
do you have a
you know,
question?
just so it's understood, because what, Steve is saying, I couldn't agree more, other than the fact that someone said, wow, we owe them, $100 and some odd $1,000. That's over a decade of DDA money that was received. That isn't just yesterday's.
Not really. You didn't collect anything until 2016. And
Yeah.
you collected a little bit of money in 15, very little, but you didn't collect anything until 16, so it ain't no decade. It's 4 years. And all taxes are collected in arrears, so it's 4 years exactly is what it is, a tax collection that you got.
All I'm
Because
saying is
you
that
didn't even
didn't
have,
just
you didn't even
happen
have
overnight.
you didn't even have the number right.
It wasn't
way
me,
it was figured.
it wasn't the treasurer that was here before.
You didn't even have the number right, it was the whole board, you voted for it.
I wasn't-
But you didn't have the number right to even to determine how much money you were supposed to collect, you didn't know how much money you were supposed to collect.
I'm just saying, that didn't happen overnight. That happened.
The whole thing, what starts wrong ends wrong, that started wrong and then ends wrong, that's the bottom line. Now you have a chance for the board to
I'm
fix
sorry.
it.
Can I answer your question?
Please do.
Directly out of the fund, you kept track of it.
I will get there, but I think trustee Elmery has something to say.
No, it's wondering, have we had any communication with LCC about dispersing that money back?
Once again, that would kind of go back to being a businessman. that I am.
Well, good. I'm glad you're a businessman.
They're aware of that.
I'm
I said that to hang with me, but they're aware that this has happened. They've been notified. But the dollar amount has to be taken and be figured by a third party, which is the accounting firm. And the auditor looks at it, and when we get it at the end of the year, for part of the end of the year thing here, and then we disperse it.
Well, so I'm gonna make it.
It's simple.
I'm gonna ask a
It is.
question,
Really is.
I'm gonna ask it towards the board, but I'm looking at.
I'm not gonna do it
Ryan
myself. I
about
guess that's the answer to your question.
So if that-
I'm not stupid enough to do that.
Will those funds be earmarked for particular budget uses on their end, or will it go into the general fund?
On LCC?
Yes.
I have no idea what LCC does with their money.
So,
General fund.
so I guess, I wonder if
Property
there's
tax
not,
collection fees is what my field would be.
I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to negotiate or put a request on LCC to earmark those funds for scholarships for students who come from that. Or if there's an opportunity along those lines.
You could ask them to even take and forfeit the money and donate the
tried-
whole
I
money to the
tried
DDA
that.
district.
I
But
tried
I
that.
can't speak for them.
They
But
didn't
yes,
opt,
you could do that.
they didn't opt out. Like
I
they should
remember the
have.
history, and they,
Yeah, and so because of that, that's why this situation exists. If they had opt out, which they normally do, they opt out of all these kinds of things. Our library opt out, you know, our police department did not opt out, and our fire department. So because of that, that's what they end up.
Your township board didn't opt your public safety departments out.
Well,
It
whoever
wasn't,
it
and the
was,
police
yeah.
department has no right to opt out, nor does the fire department. The township people have said at the township board, the group of legislators have said at this table right here, and it's their responsibility to opt out or not opt out. The same with the LCC board of directors, or the school board of directors, or the county board of directors, or anybody else. That's the way that works. But, I mean, that-
So
We
that's-
could,
all I'm saying is.
we could, what we could do is, if you vote in support of this, on Monday night, when we adopt the budget, we could adopt a resolution asking, for board support, so that I could reach out and say to them, would you be interested in?
Before you do
Allocating. Well,
that, and I
or-
don't mean to interrupt
No,
here.
no, no, no,
Before
I'm
you
just
do
saying,
that,
like-
You guys gotta understand how this has gotta work legally here. You're gonna want a official document from your accountant, which is
Mhm.
Maynard and Costerison, who's already got this thing penciled out. I've seen it and we've talked about it, but the only thing is they're gonna need an update on with interest involved and all that, because there is gonna be interest involved in this up to the current date till you do it. And you're gonna have the official numbers
I
from
will
them.
not step on those toes.
You're gonna have to have that official dollar from them, because I want absolutely no part of being the person figuring this thing. That's why you want Maynard Costerison, who's our CPA firm, to take and figure this thing. And that number will be audited by the auditors.
And they will have their number
That's correct.
from their CPA.
So all I'm suggesting is that when that money is returned, if the board was in support of asking LCC to allocate that money for scholarships for math students or whatever, or forfeiting it, that I could then communicate with them after that's completed.
I think it's a great idea. I think you should do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't know if they can.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
can tell them
want.
what to do with
You
it.
probably got a
We're not
better
gonna
idea
tell
than
them,
anybody
right? We're
else.
gonna request, we're
Can
gonna
you do
ask
that
them,
for public money?
Nope.
I'm sorry?
and it'll go before their
Can they do
board.
that?
Yep, it will.
Yeah.
So that probably would be a great thing to do.
I mean, there's no way in hell they're gonna do this, but I think it's a really good idea.
The piece of paper looks nice, but.
Kansas no.
Good ideas out there.
Okay.
Bring it to the table now.
So the ask at this time is to put $20,000, and you do not have a DDA page currently in the budget that is in front of you. As of Monday night's budget, you will have a DDA page because there will be something in it for you to approve. What I'm asking at this time is $20,000 to be put in land improvements under the DDA, which is line 248-248-974. All those in favor?
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Questions? I'm so sorry.
So,
Let's do this list.
$20,000 wasn't the request in the CIP, was it? Wasn't it more than that?
No, there were no, because we needed to have the cupola assessed for historical restoration. And we didn't complete that.
And it needs to be put in the building.
But what will happen is that we can move forward with forming the alliance with the museum committee and the school and all the representatives that need to be involved and determine what needs to happen. and
So this
how
is
to
not
use-
their CIP
I was
submission?
just gonna say, that's.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
They didn't submit that. Parks and Rec submitted that.
So that is not what we're voting to support?
No, I think
Okay.
the agreement is to work towards the overall improvement and determine what needs to be done and I'm guessing how much it's gonna cost and what it's gonna look like, so that we can chip away at it over the next 5 years.
Okay,
So
thank
that
you.
we're ready for the memorialization and on the 100 year.
Okay.
Got it.
Marie?
Okay.
So this won't be the only time you're gonna talk about this or see this, or
That's-
there's gonna be I'm gonna guess there's gonna be a work.
I just misunderstood. I thought we were talking about the actual
Yeah.
proposal.
I think he just,
That's what I guess I was, the 20,000 is gonna do what?
The 20,000 is going to allow this partnership to hire consultants to
It may be
create
engineer drawings or
recommendations.
something.
That's,
Engineering.
okay, that's what I,
Yeah.
okay.
And we may not use it.
And you do it land improvements too, you're not held to
Yeah.
any.
It's gonna operate like the other groups here have operated, Safe Routes to School. You'll have a work group, you'll have someone that will come and it's my vision that someone will come and give you updates about what's been occurring and where we're moving towards. So it's not gonna be just me, it's
Can I make
a group.
one suggestion?
Yes.
We're gonna vote on this, you're gonna get this
Yes.
on Monday night.
Yes.
That's public hearing. Can we take and contact Ernest Stevens from Maynard Custerson and ask him which was the better way of doing this? Whether
Yes.
we want to do
With the
this,
DDA
whether we
money.
want to make the expenditure out of the DDA, or we want to make the expenditure or a transfer out of the DDA fund to capital projects.
Okay, we can do that. So it'll either be,
Because if you
it'll
wanna
be where
you
the
wanna be
accountant
legal
says it's
when you do
appropriate.
this.
Yeah.
If
It'll
you're
be-
gonna do this with the DDA, you have to have, I do know
Yeah.
enough about it to know you have to have a DDA
Yes.
budget with an
Bless you.
expenditure line item.
I
And
guess that was a
Correct,
cough.
because
you would need them pages in
sneeze.
this.
I would put those pages in this document.
That's the only thing,
So
whereas
I
it
will
might
work
be
with
simpler to
Aaron.
do the transfer, operating transfer out of the DDA fund to the general fund for the purpose of
Okay.
this.
Let's see what they recommend.
I'll see what they recommend. We'll work to see what they recommend.
I mean, that's a phone call,
Yes,
all that
it
is.
is. And he's great
And
at
it
that.
covers everybody at the table and keeps you.
It'll ensure we do
So-
it correctly.
So until we find that out.
No, right now, you're gonna give me,
Okay.
you're gonna give either support or denial of
$20,000
$20,000
out of the DDA funds.
out of the DDA funds
Okay.
to go where the accountant feels is appropriate for spending it out of, either the DDA fund or capital projects.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Okay. You're taking 20,000 out of capital projects,
No,
or
No.
you're taking it out of DDA. Okay, so
it's coming out of DDA.
it's gonna come out of
You're
DDA
either
money.
making, it's coming out of DDA no matter what.
No matter
You're
what.
gonna make a transfer out of
Into-
DDA into
into-
the capital project.
That's
or
what I thought.
You're gonna have your own
We're
budget.
gonna do what the auditor tells us to do.
But
No.
The accountant, the
The
accountant,
accountant's gonna tell you that.
the accountant.
Not the auditor, the accountant. Okay, just so I'm understanding.
We're gonna put it where
because
he tells us it's appropriate for us to spend it out of.
That's what I'm having an issue with.
He's gonna tell us. He's gonna tell us it's capital projects, or he's gonna
DDA
tell.
money.
He's gonna,
It's all
no,
DDA
it's
money.
all coming from DDA money.
But
He's gonna tell us where to put it to
He's gonna
spend
tell you whether you're gonna do it with the DDA fund and leave it in the DDA fund, or whether you're gonna transfer the money out of the fund like you do some of these other funds.
And put it somewhere else, but it
Into
is
the general
DDA
fund,
money,
but
it's
it's
not
DDA
capital
money.
improvement money. Okay, no, that's all I'm, because it's sounding like it's either
No.
or.
No,
And it can't,
it's coming,
it shouldn't be
no,
either
it's
or,
coming
it
out of
should be
DDA.
the DDA money.
And we're gonna put it where the accountants tell us it's appropriate to put it.
That's,
Trustee Fewens Bliss?
Last question, I promise. I assume there will be a role for the newly constituted Parks and Rec or Rec Committee, Farmers Market, whatever we're going to call
Yes.
that committee, that they would be,
Yes, they would have-
integral to
Yes,
this.
they will
Okay.
be integral to this too.
great, thank you.
Yes.
I'm ready to vote.
All those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
after all that, yeah,
Those opposed? Are you opposed?
no.
Okay.
I would, oh, no.
Okay.
As long as it's coming out of DDA money, that was my only concern, because it was
The
saying
only,
either or.
that's
and
no,
that's what I,
it's, where it's
Wanted to make
going is
sure.
the either or.
right.
Thank you. So you, based on what the accountant guides us to do, you may either have a DDA page or you'll have it in capital projects. So, okay. What else would you like to discuss? Anything else?
Do we have to discuss the fire department? Or is
As
that-
it stands, you were good with it, but
Okay.
is there something you would like to change?
No, no, I just wanted to know. That was the only thing we talked about.
Okay,
And the part that we're good with is the hiring of, or creation of 2 new.
yes, the
full-time-
budget as written in this document would include hiring 2 full-time fire responders, first responders. And continue recruiting, that will not stop.
Right, I mean, the concern I have is, and I don't, I mean, I'm not gonna advocate that we change things, but,
Mhm.
you know, there has been almost no effort on the fire department's part to recruit volunteer firefighters, or at least ineffectual effort. And so one wondering I had was, would it be better to hire a communications person for the fire department or maybe emergency services that would do volunteer coordination? And that seems to be more sustainable in terms of legacy costs, and while also building the capacity of the fire departments to recruit in effective ways volunteers.
Okay, so Taylor has worked in coordination with them to create videos and different mediums for them to try to recruit people. We also have a county emergency services coordinator that is on our staff currently as an officer that's been assisting us. Kevin and the team do a lot of community events where they're present and seen. So I don't know that a communications person, I mean, that's the will of this board, but I think that we have people in place to do the work.
So, I mean, how many community events has the fire department attended?
They're at football games every week. So they do events with the library, in conjunction with the library. They do CPR trainings, and I mean, there's through various mechanisms, but bath days, I mean, they're in parades, and park a truck somewhere, they go to school and visit the school. So, I mean, I don't know in light of COVID if those things are still occurring. But
I mean, but this was an issue prior to COVID.
Mhm.
So
Our numbers have always fluctuated, I would agree with you, between 15 and 30 people.
I mean, I guess the question is, in my experience, people are seeking opportunities to volunteer. And so I'm confused as to why we've not been able to.
Because it requires almost a year of training before they're actually able to just volunteer. I
So
mean,
we've had applications.
yes,
And
we do physicals, yes. And a lot of times it requires them to be certified as a certain level of firefighter before they can even touch anything. So if they can't follow through with their training regimen, or they miss a certain number of monthly trainings that we hold at our fire department, then they have to go away if they can't meet the requirements. So sometimes I don't think people understand the time and dedication it takes to follow through with those trainings.
So
It's very intense.
how long has the fire department been a primarily volunteer-based fire department?
Forever.
So is this a new issue? I mean, it seems like
It's ongoing. It's per chief, it's per, there was a mass exodus after Art left. There was an exodus while Dan Oberst was chief. I mean, it's per chief, it's per just how the world works. Family commitments take people away, people come and go. It's leadership, it's a number of.
Jason, what makes you think that volunteers aren't coming to volunteer as a firefighter? Because
Is their roster number?
well, that's
It
the only,
fluctuates.
is that what you're looking at, is the number that's there? Because it is, and you're absolutely correct, Karen, it is very difficult. I worked with both police officers, because I was one, and firefighters. I would not go into a building any more than most firefighters don't want to shoot a firearm and kill somebody. I think it is very difficult, and you're absolutely correct. It's very time consuming, and you're volunteering.
It is, and at the same time, there are people who are looking for meaningful ways of spending their time. And so I, as a pretty active community member, think about all the times that I've seen requests for applications through, I don't go to football games, so I don't see them at football games, but they in the police department offered a police ride-alongs to the farmer's market. So there's certainly some things, but I can't say that, you know, when I go onto the Bath Community Facebook page, I see it regularly, volunteers or a volunteer drive, or I see.
That probably would not occur there, very honestly, the community page.
So,
It's been toxic. I mean, I'll just be really honest with you.
I'm
It's a
familiar
way
with
to-
how toxic it is.
Yeah.
However, I'm not gonna fight this.
No, I'm not.
not convinced that we've done an effective job of actually recruiting volunteers for it. I think if we fund these 2 new positions, we incentivize the fire department to continue that route of not seeking volunteers. And then not only do we have these legacy costs, we're gonna be faced with the same damn decision year after year. And so that's my concern. I'd rather see investment in, you know, supporting volunteers. And I mean, from what I've heard, every committee has had challenges of volunteer recruitment, senior services and the like. And like I said, maybe I'm biased in terms of what I see in terms of people, you know, coming out of the woodwork to, you know, donate their time and volunteer. I think we've got a lot of goodwill and people willing to contribute to our community. Rather than eliminating opportunities for that, we should seek opportunities
I agree.
and do the work
I
behind
do
it.
agree with you. And it's not, I hope you didn't take it that way. I'm not fighting you. I'm trying to supply information you may not be aware of. I'm not trying to fight you. I do agree that there's more work to be done in the volunteer recruitment process. But I also know that we have recruited and hired paid-on-call firefighters, and they don't make it very long. And I think part of that is because the time they need to commit to the training in the beginning is very intense. To the point where Chief has even said, like, he considers sometimes having them just be around for a month or 2 before we invest the money to put them through training for them to drop out.
So one of the things that I found impressive, so we had 2 asks for additional staff members, one by our police chief and the other by our fire chief. When our police chief came up, he provided statistics about the average number of officers per capita. And so he leveraged data and evidence to support his argument. What I have not seen from the fire department is any information that would support this in terms of, here's the number of times that we've offered opportunities for volunteers. Here's the number of applications that we've received in the last year. Here's the number of individuals who dropped out of the application process.
Okay.
Here's a concrete set of evidence that supports my statement that people just don't want to volunteer.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, it really is. I mean, they have a lot of data. I don't know that they have that data. It can be gleaned.
And that would be, I mean, again, I don't have the sense that anyone on the board is, I mean, if everyone's on the same page supporting the 2, I don't want to be the, you know, the sore thumb, but.
I'm gonna support, the fire department for the new employees, just so you know ahead of time. I have no problem with that at all. But I'll give you one piece of data that you might be missing, okay? 40 years ago, when I used to go to a football game, there'd be 30 guys over there that were on the fire department, and I'd be over there with all the good old boys. It was great, but there were a lot less requirements of what you had to be in training to be a fireman 40 years ago than what you have today. And today, you actually have a commitment of continuing education after you become a fire person, okay? Just like all of the professions. So when the chief told me he has 15 volunteers and not 30, that says volumes to Joe, okay? The population is significantly higher here than it was 40 years ago. And we have less volunteers at this moment. Now, I don't disagree with you that we should pursue seeing if we can get some more volunteers. But I also know that due to our population growth and everything, that we need these people to provide good public safety to our residents.
Well, and I've had conflicting concerns, and I'll say this, and then we can move on or do as this board chooses to do. I was actually concerned that changing these positions to full-time positions may actually drive more and more people away. Because it's possible that somebody might come out of Lansing or a different department and take up a full-time job. And the people will think, oh, the full-time got it, I don't need to show up. But I also know that there was almost 1,000 calls in 2020, and that was just medical runs, that wasn't fires. And it's like the same 10 people do the runs all the time, and I'm afraid that they're gonna get burned out, or they're gonna get hurt, or so I agree with you completely that the retention needs to improve, the recruiting needs to continue and improve, but I honestly don't know the right answer to this. I've struggled with it, so I'm just being very honest, but I know the burden is great, and I don't want to get into a position where something happens to one of these men or women, or that somebody's house burns down because we don't have enough people to get there and get it out. So I'm
Well,
conflicted,
I mean, if
and
you
I'm
don't
not
have
trying
enough
to
people-
scare everybody, but I'm just saying, like, that's my fear.
We have mutual aid agreements that
We do.
call upon
We do.
other fire
We
departments
do.
so that a house does not burn because we don't have.
But we have had a structure fire where 5 people showed up. That's not enough. And so by the time you figure out you've got 5 people, then you are calling for mutual aid. But I would love for just to have enough people respond so that we don't have to do those things. So I'm conflicted as well. So it's not an easy answer for me too.
Have we looked at like what DeWitt Township does or Langsburg? Any ideas from other?
Yes, we've
Communities in the area?
actually looked at some of their, in looking at their structure and some of their policies and procedures and in trying to look at their pay scales, and is it pay? Is it, the hours that they're required to put in the ongoing, we're trying to drill down and figure out what exactly the problem is. Are just people just chewing off more than they can handle? I don't
People
know
have
that
a
there's a
busy
clear
life
answer.
nowadays, and there is a lot of training, and you have to train
My
twice a
son
month
was
at
in it.
least.
Yeah,
My son was in it, and he works full-time, lots of overtime.
exactly.
I think he made it maybe a year, and it was just too much. He couldn't keep up with what he needed to do, and he was also going to LCC and then doing this at the same time.
They would love to have him back. but-
Oh, God, I'm sure they would. It's part of the problem for me, when I look at fire department, because that's mandated by law that we have a fire department. There's no getting around that. You have to have a fire department. The problem I have with it is part-time, is volunteering. That I have a real problem with when it comes to a fire department. Because when a law enforcement officer comes out of the academy, they're certifiable. They go to any place. And some of them even have gone back in '08. We had the downtime, and they went to Texas and to other states because Michigan does a great job in training both firemen and police officers. So they are in demand, but they want full-time work to be able to pay back part of what they have. Some departments pick them up and put them through, but not too many anymore. You pay your own way to go through it, and it's expensive. So when they come out of their training in the fire department, they want full-time jobs. For us, we are a part-time volunteer, we're volunteer. So that means they have to go out and find another job just to be able to,
Or they have another job.
or they already, and usually when they go through a fire department, the training, they don't have another job because that is their job. They're, for a law enforcement, 13 weeks, I'm assuming for fire departments, they'll be pretty close to that. So part of the problem, I think, is the fact that it is a volunteer department. It's tough. It's tough to find people who jobs would allow them to drop at a half, for that second, they're gonna drop and they're gonna run. That's pretty tough. So when you talk about them wanting, fire department wanting 2 full-time people, for me, that's a plus. For me, that's a real plus, and I think people will come and volunteer more because you've got full-time, because there's something there that they can work towards, or maybe they want 10 or 15 years down the road, you know, whatever it is. But for me, that's the problem, is our volunteer force, you know, firefighters. It is, especially when we're mandated to have one. It's tough. Anyway, like you said, I'm off my soapbox, so, you know, that's,
I'll say one thing, you're going through a culture change here.
yes, you are.
And that's huge.
That is true.
You no longer have, when you had the day of the volunteer fire department, you had 3 or 4 contractors in the neighborhood that was on the fire department. You had the guy at the hardware store, you had the guy over here that's run the gas station. You had all these people that was here to do this, and you don't have that now. We've become a community. Look at our SEV. We have become a community of working professionals. And a lot of them are not of the age that are willing to give up their time and whatnot after they work all day to take and go and put time in at a firefighter type job. That is a young woman and man's game. It is.
No, it's true. I wouldn't do it.
The physicality of the whole thing. You could have probably ask Brenda's son. It is a very physicality type job. It's probably more so than what being a police officer is in some ways. In other ways, maybe not. I don't know.
Well, we
It's
have
a
April
culture
here.
change. And
Yeah.
what you want to be doing, you want to be thinking
She
about the
goes,
future.
she's gone.
And you say, look at other townships, look at other townships our size and see how they've taken and took the culture change and how they've taken and transferred and rotated into having a more paid full-time firefighter on their roster. You made the mention of the, I'll say one more thing and I'll quit. You made the mention about, you're worried about the part-timers losing interest because you went out and you hired full-timers. You hire full-time people, you need to think about your statement. You hire full-time people to work in this township, out here in DPW, in the office, and here and there, everywhere else, all the time, BAP residents.
That's true.
And the reason why you do that most of the time is because they were the most qualified candidates
That's correct.
you had. And so that's the reason why you hired that. But that's part of the culture change. When you switched over from being a good old boy system around here to going to being a more modern day government and having Marie here, that takes, that took a change, that changes things. And it's the same thing with this firefighter thing. It's the same thing. The police, you go hire the cops over here. There's a lot of them that live here in the community, but the chief doesn't even live in the community, for
Yeah.
God's sakes.
Well, and
that's
today I learned there's 1,200 departments that are hiring right now. And
that whole
we
thing
have
right
worries
there.
that we may not even get good candidates for
That's
that.
it, that's it. So I mean, it's, get used to it, guys. You're gonna deal with this.
Yeah.
And you're gonna, that's part of your job, and you're gonna have to get some more people. To me, if I was involved in this, I'd be down there at high school and hitting all these kids, seniors that's coming out of high school and seeing what they, and seeing how many of them you could snag.
Well, I used to do that, yeah.
But I don't know if that would work.
Well,
You hired the chief to run the department and do what he thinks is best. And he's got to keep the morale of his people he's got there on the right page too. It's kind of like you, I don't know if you got people work under you or not in your department, but you got to think about all the people that work under you. You know, you got to think about, well, if I do this, what's this one going to say? If I do that, what's that one going to say? And world we live in. Sorry.
don't ever apologize.
Okay,
I think we're good with the fire department.
okay.
Well,
Anything
I'm
additional?
not salary, but that's, I'm not gonna start that argument. So,
Anything else? So what I will do now, hearing nothing, I will update this for Monday night. It will be out Thursday night. If you would like a large copy like you have in front of you right now, I know this is a lot of paper.
it works.
You can pick it up. We'll make it available for you. It'll be available Thursday night.
well, your packet for Monday will be available Thursday night as well. We will update the resolutions. I think the only one that may change is the general appropriations resolution, which is the 4-page resolution. The other ones will remain the same. We will hold our budget public hearing, and then you can choose to adopt those resolutions, thereby adopting the budget, or you can choose to hold off and adopt the budget on the 15th of December. That will be up to you.
We have to do the hearing first.
You have to do the
Yeah,
hearing,
okay.
yep, on Monday night. Once you do the hearing, you can decide how you go.
And that starts at 6 or 5?
No, it's at 6 o'clock.
It's your regular
Normal meeting time.
Okay, so we
And
didn't
then
put any
it'll
extra
be an
time in
agenda
for that.
item. The agenda item will be under unfinished, and then it will be under action.
All right,
And I will list all the resolutions after it, so that when the public hearing closes, you can determine whether you take action or you take no action.
we got to take action, one way or the other. We've run out of time.
Correct, you have one more meeting, but you are,
Yeah.
you're coming to the end.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anything else?
I have nothing else. There's nothing else.
Okay, we're good. Then we're gonna move to public statement 2. I figured you would agree.
Just 3 quick things. First, thank you very much for the support of the nature trail. Secondly, I think that the Public Art Committee would be a great addition to the Memorial Park. I would love to see some sculpture there that would be really beautiful and something that we could use to celebrate with. And third, it's been a joy to watch you come closer together as a board and work so well together during this process. Thank you very much.
You would,
I totally enjoy that.
you gonna give her $5 to say that?
No.
All right, who's next? Thank you, Katie.
Hi,
All right, Ray.
Ray Kotke. The museum committee, thanks to Jason giving me the contact information, I contacted Chris Hagerman and volunteered my help to help them in any way I can. And I would like to also offer my services to become the liaison, if I could, between that committee and the Board of Trustees. Jason had mentioned you'd like to have copious updates on where that's going to be. I'd be happy to do that. And thank you again for the Park Lake Trail. The word cojones comes to mind. I don't know why, but thank you. Karen, it's good to see you getting your groove on. And Taylor, I appreciate your help too. One thing I did want to mention, that with this Park Lake Trail coming up, the Cousins Project, there's going to be other things as well. You may want to consider reinstating some form or another of Parks and Green Space Advisory Board or something. You've got a couple of people still listed on the website. You see Carolyn's on there and Larry's on there, and I'd like to be on there. I'd like to be an integral part of bringing this forward in these multiple phases of projects. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else? John, are you good? Okay. Board member comments, number 8. Start with trustee, if you would list.
I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's a train coming.
I was just gonna say, that's a train. You thinking the same thing I was. Right, trustee Rosecrans?
Nothing.
I think we had a very productive meeting tonight. Really good.
I also think it was a productive meeting, and I was very happy to see at least 2, if not 3, stay, which was very encouraging. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to see all of you this evening.
I'm all set, thank you.
May I? I know I'm not a board member. Can I give you an update?
Oh, sure.
I appreciate it, just real quick.
Okay.
So in an effort to try to put the DDA lights up, that were the lights that were owned by the DDA, we rented a lift, an 80-foot lift from Sunbelt. Mr. Wisner used to graciously come and put up the lights, but apparently he could only go so high with his truck. Apparently we only got so high with the 80 feet. it became dangerous. I think we may have done some damage to the concrete in Cousins Park. We will assess that and see what we will need to do to fix that, but I assure you we will fix it. And in trying to get the lights around the tree, we got in the mud, so we created some ruts. So what I'm saying is that there was some issues today, but there are lights on one tree. There is a, I know Brenda, we had hoped to put lights on 2 trees all the way to the top, and it didn't happen. There's lights on one tree.
Did you do this?
And there's a tree. And I have been, Ann Elsenheimer and Chris Hagerman reached out to me graciously, and we're hoping to coordinate some type of a little event in our COVID world where people could enjoy coming together and celebrating the fact that the trees were lit. So there is one tree lit. I'm gonna drive by it on my way home and see how it looks. I pray that it looks good. And we did the best we could, and it may have missed the mark. So I hope not, because I think it's really important to this community. So we'll see what we can do if it's really bad. But I'm gonna go check it out. So yeah, they're lit right now, so people may already be complaining. I'm not sure, but.
Thanks for trying.
Yes, we did. So, but that's the update, and I wanted you to know that because it's very important to this community, and I know a lot of people need some spirit and some lights and some happiness, so.
Thank you for the update.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me speak.
I move the meeting be adjourned.
That's true.
Yeah, take a roll call.
I don't think anybody's already.
Sorry about that.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes-Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi? Yes. Mr. Wisswasser?
You want to adjourn, Mr. Whitlock?
Ms. Bensy?
I was gonna say yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right now, there's a it's closed.
No, we did not.
Karen, do you want to keep this?
Yes. Yes. I hope, well, maybe we'll hang it in our conference room.
About that.